So you may not view yourself as malnourished in the sense of somebody who is living in, maybe a less fortunate country that doesn't have access to food, that doesn't have financial resources to food. And you might be sitting here in our beautiful, amazing, privileged United States of America and have access to food, have money to buy food, and yet still be malnourished because you might be underfueling your body and overtraining your body. So you're not getting all the nutrients you need and you're overstressing it. That's malnutrition. Did you know the average woman spends 7 years of her life dealing with period pain? WaveBye believes it's time to get those years back. Founded by an OBGYN, WaveBye is the first science-backed solution that regulates menstrual cycle and reduces period pain before it even starts. WaveBye has 3 products. By Irregularity from WaveBye is designed to help your cycle find its rhythm again. Packed with clinically studied nutrients like inositol, magnesium, and chasteberry, By Irregularity supports healthy ovulation, hormone balance, and smoother, more predictable cycles without prescription or hormones. By Cramps and By Bad Cramps are the proactive premenstrual products that target the prostaglandin messengers that cause cramps and heavy bleeding, so your life doesn't have to stop every month. Think of it as the new Midol, backed by science, built by women, and designed to keep you feeling like yourself. Join the thousands who have already said it's absolutely life-changing, including myself. I've been taking this product every day for nearly 6 months. I take By Irregularity and By Cramps, and it has absolutely reduced my cramping and regulated my cycle. It is super predictable. So head to waveby.co and use the code Lindsey Cortes for 10% off. Say bye to irregular or painful cycles and hi to your true rhythm. Because when your cycle's in sync, everything else just flows. Lindsey Cortes for 10% off your WaveBye purchase. Hey fans, welcome back to another episode of the Female Athlete Nutrition Podcast with your host, myself, Lindsey Elizabeth Cortes. And if you're new, welcome. Sometimes we do guest episodes, but today's a solo episode. It's funny because last week I spoke about fueling through the festive holidays and gave you some tips there. And I kind of jokingly was like, yep, it's holiday season because I'm sick. And then my sister sent me a text over the week. She lives in a cold weather climate area up in New England in Massachusetts. And she felt a sickness coming on and was asking me, Lindsey, what should I do nutrition-wise to protect myself? Like, I can't be sick all winter long. It's only November. What should I do? And she had heard somebody told her to take colostrum. She was like, do you take colostrum? Will that help my immune system? And I said, no, I don't take colostrum. And I highly, 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 highly doubt that will have any impact on your immune system. We're not going to talk about colostrum today. What we're going to talk about is what you can do nutrition-wise to try and boost and protect your immune system, especially as we are entering into a season, at least here in the United States. I know I have some international listeners, but here in the United States where people tend to get more sick. And the reason people get more sick in the wintertime is because a lot of the infectious viruses that spread, like the common cold, they actually thrive in colder, dry air. And so that's obviously going to hit some of here in the States, our northern states a little bit more than our southern states, but it does still, I live in Texas right now, and it does still get colder and drier. And then as people in the winter are indoors more often, then you're in closer contact with other people. And maybe those germs are spreading onto surfaces that can then, you pick it up with your hands, they transmit. And there's also, as we're going to get into the nutrition aspect here, there's a possibility that vitamin D levels play an impact. Well, we know that vitamin D plays an impact in your immune system. We're going to get into that shortly. But as people who in the summer, we make vitamin D from the sun. Yes, we get it from food, but mostly we make it from the sun. So people typically have higher vitamin D levels during the spring and summer months, and their vitamin D can drop throughout the winter And so that might be another reason why people tend to get more sick throughout the colder winter months, because you're indoors and you're not getting as much vitamin D through sunlight. So, I mean, that's why we get sick. And what are these infectious? Well, there's a ton of infectious diseases. There's a ton of them, right? But the ones I'm kind of talking about and focusing on when I say we get more sick in the winter, these are things like the common cold, the flu, respiratory infections. So upper respiratory tract infections, those are the ones affecting, your larynx, your airways, your nose, your sinuses, when you have that sinus pressure, sinus infection, congestion. And then your lower respiratory infections are ones that are affecting more of your actual lungs and air sacs, affecting your breathing, maybe a cough, like getting pneumonia, bronchitis. Those are your lower respiratory tract infections. We can throw COVID-19 into the mix of these infectious diseases as well, that people are still understandably very concerned about. So those are the ones we're focusing on today. There's other infectious diseases, but those are the ones that we think about. Oh, we're getting sick. Like it's November. People are getting their flu shots this time of year. And so what can we do? How does your diet, how does nutrition affect your immune system? Well, the number one way that nutrition affects your immune system is we just have to think about food and nutrients support everything your body does. So if you are malnourished, if you're not getting enough calories, if you're not getting enough protein, then you are at a higher risk of getting a sickness because you don't have the nutrients, energy, and strength to fight it off. Now, malnutrition, my listeners, you are athletes, you are strong. And yet, so many of you are actually underfueling. So you may not view yourself as malnourished in the sense of somebody who is living in, maybe a less fortunate country that doesn't have access to food, that doesn't have financial resources to food. And you might be sitting here in our beautiful, amazing, privileged United States of America and have access to food, have money to buy food, and yet still be malnourished because you might be underfueling your body and overtraining your body. So you're not getting all the nutrients you need and you're overstressing it. That's malnutrition. And we actually see that in research, RED-specific research, that athletes and people with REDs have a higher incidence of acute respiratory infections, notably the upper respiratory tract infections. That one's been studied a bit more often. So upper respiratory tract infections, is, like I was mentioning, the congestion, the sinuses, the larynx, the pharynx, your nose, essentially, all of that, you are at higher risk of contracting that. A common cold, you're at higher risk of having the common cold, which can really wipe you out. We call it the common cold. Oh, it's just a cold. But it really wipes you out. And especially your breathing, your ability to breathe through your nose as an athlete, which you need to do when you're moving and jumping and running. And your body's actively fighting it off as well. So you're using energy and resources to fight off this common cold and infection. And therefore, you don't have as much energy and resources for your training and performance. So, we call it the common cold, but it can really wipe you out. And it's going to drastically affect your performance as an athlete negatively. And you're actually at higher risk of that when you're in an energy deficient state. So we say malnutrition puts you at higher risk of one of these common colds, flu, infectious diseases, but that's also REDs. If you're not fueling enough as an athlete, and I don't mean getting all your multivitamins and nutrients, we're going to talk about that shortly, but I mean, are you eating enough calories? At the end of the day, are you eating enough calories? Not compared to your sister, your non-athlete friend, or your mother. I mean, compared to your sport needs and the level of training that you are doing. Are you eating enough calories? That's the number one thing that you can do to protect yourself against sickness. And then just to make it be known, obviously people who are older, people who are younger, children, newborns, or people who maybe haven't been vaccinated against certain conditions, all of those people are at higher risk. Those who are immunocompromised, people who have other disorders of your immune system, you're going to be at higher risk of getting sick as well. But focusing on the athletic population, when we talk about malnutrition, I want you to recognize that REDS is a form of that. And of course, micronutrients do matter. So if you are deficient, we see deficiency in zinc, folate, vitamin E, vitamin A, and vitamin D. If you're deficient in those things, then you are at higher risk of contracting the cold, the flu, or one of these infectious diseases as well. So just another tip here why I think if you're proactive in your health, maybe you do get at least yearly blood work, maybe more than that, but at least yearly, and make sure that you're not deficient in these things. We could talk about optimize and extra supplementation as well, but let's make sure we're not deficient in these nutrients. And typically, if you don't have REDS and you're not malnourished and you're eating enough calories and protein, carbs, and fats, you should be getting all these nutrients in. Iron, I might argue that a lot of female athletes still end up being deficient in iron, even if they are eating enough and well enough and aren't energy deficient. But all these other nutrients, you should be able to get enough if you're eating enough calories. So that's why we get sick and who's at risk. And now what we want to focus on is how can we prevent that? What can we do to not get sick? Well, I'm not technically the public health expert here, but a good PSA to wash your hands, try not to cough on people. If you are sick, it's wise not to put yourself in a public place where you're going to expose other people to it. And if you notice that other people around you are sick, maybe consider separating yourself from those people. I think this is why college students get sick so much. I felt like I was sick all the time in college because you're living in close quarters. I lived my first 2 years, in a dorm room with one other roommate. It was like if she was sick, I was sick. If I was sick, she was sick. We were sleeping like 5 feet apart from each other. And then you're just in a building. So right next door, you've got 2 more roommates. And right next to that, 2 more roommates. And you're eating at the dining halls together, and you're at training and practice together. And I was just sick. I felt like I had a sinus infection every single year or twice a year throughout college. So I know it's hard because you're in close quarters with people, but as much as you can, washing your hands, hot soap and water, not sharing drinks with each other. Sounds simple. As a mother, I know I'm not doing a good job at that. My kids are always drinking out of my water bottle. I pack their own water bottles. They don't care. They want mom's water bottle. So that's a huge problem in our house, and I know it, and I need to get better at it. But are you, as an athlete with your teammates, are you guys sharing water bottles? Are you drinking from the same water fountain? Do you need to be careful about those surfaces that you touch? And as much as I'd like to hope that us athletes aren't partying on Friday and Saturday nights in college, some of you are. And so think about that next time you just grab a random red Solo cup. Besides the impact of alcohol and lack of sleep on your immune system and on your performance as an athlete, which are 2 major things, but there's a lot of germs floating around at some of those college get-togethers. So be careful who you kiss. I'm going to throw that in there as well. Be careful who you kiss on a Friday night because you're going to get more sick in those environments, in those college settings. Okay, before I dive too much further into this topic, I am going to mention supplementation in this episode, and I'm going to read some research about how these nutrients and supplements might be able to help you. And I need you to remember that this podcast is educational only. This is not a prescription. This is not medical advice. And there are harms to over-supplementation. I'm going to mention some of them as I talk, but please talk to your healthcare provider. Anything that you do, anything that you take away from this educational-based podcast, anything that you consume and put in your body, that is on you. So be sure that you understand your health, talk to your medical providers, and I do want to encourage food consumption, whole food consumption. I hope that comes across in this episode. But if you are going to supplement, do so wisely, be informed, be educated, be aware of your health. I'm not going to talk about too many contraindications, but there are certain disease states or conditions or medications where supplementing is contraindicated. So you need to be aware if you're taking any medicine at all, be aware that there are nutrient and herbal interactions with medications that you can't just assume every supplement is safe. So that's my disclaimer. This episode and all of my episodes are not medical advice, but I do want to educate and enlighten you so that you can continue to make decisions for yourself and talk to your medical provider about what might be best for you. So when my sister texted me like nutrition-wise, she was like, colostrum? And I was like, no. And I said, vitamin C, zinc, vitamin E. And I said, and if you want to throw some other things in there like garlic, honey, selenium to boost your immune system, like those are the things that actually work. And I kind of gave her some tips of what to do, of how to take honey, how to boost your vitamin C. And then I decided for this podcast episode, let me actually, double check, fact check myself before I talk about this super publicly, not just in a text to my sister. And I went on examine.com, which is a huge research science-backed database. They take as much research as they can and they summarize it with real people, not AI, real people, real experts, summarize this data for you. And the most proven nutrients, I'm saying most proven, doesn't mean that it's still great, because at the end of the day, a virus or a bacteria, there's not one nutrition thing that will just wipe this out or prevent this. If there was, we would know about it by now. We really would. So, but there are things that can reduce your symptoms. There are things that can lessen the duration of it. And there are things that we see kind of from those observational studies. So this group of people that has adequate vitamin D got sick less often than this group of people who had inadequate vitamin D intake, right? So we can see these trends between nutrients of this is making your sickness less frequent or less severe or less, shorter duration is. So frequency, duration, and severity can be lessened or mitigated with certain nutrients that you might want to focus on. And so using examine.com, the three that really had the strongest research were vitamin C, vitamin D, and zinc. And I apologize to my people watching on video. I love to use the natural sunlight when I do video, but it's a cloudy day, so the sun keeps going in and out. So I just have to keep repositioning, and I apologize for that. So I'm actually just going to read you direct from examine.com a summary about vitamin C and your immune system. Although the magnitude of benefit isn't remarkable, there is a healthy body of evidence investigating the effects of supplemental vitamin C on the common cold, which increases confidence that regular supplementation reduces the duration and severity of the common cold in people who develop it. It's also probable that regular supplementation with vitamin C reduces the risk of developing the common cold, although the magnitude of benefit may not be of practical importance, with the exception of people who are undergoing acute physical heavy activity in whom the reported risk reduction is pronounced. So this is quite interesting. What it's telling us is, look, if you get the cold, you get the cold. But if you have had a regular solid intake of vitamin C throughout your life or the weeks leading up to contracting that cold, then your cold might not be so severe. And we see this in, again, severity of symptoms are mitigated and duration of the cold is shortened. Now, there's no way that in your personal life you'll be able to prove this. Like, how would you know that, oh, my cold could have lasted 14 days, but because I took care of myself and had enough vitamin C all season long, my cold only lasted 10 days. Like, you're never going to be able to know that. But, some people, cold symptoms really do linger for weeks and weeks. And so if you can have a regular intake of vitamin C before you even contract the cold, then it's likely that your symptoms won't be so bad. So I think this is super key. But the key thing too, we have products like Airborne and Emergency. It's like, oh my gosh, I feel like I'm getting sick. Let me take Emergency. 1,000 milligrams, that's a supplement. It's 1,000 milligrams of vitamin C that you pour into a little juice packet. But I'm not saying don't do that. But the reality is the research is showing us that that's actually too late. You need to have been taking it before you contracted the cold and the virus. So we need regular supplementation of vitamin C. When I say supplementation, I don't mean it has to be a pill and a supplement, just like extra boost of it. So I'll talk about how to do that in a moment. And what I think is so interesting here is that the research does show that people who physically exert themselves, AKA athletes, this is the most pronounced. So somebody who's not super physically active, maybe vitamin C doesn't have as strong of an impact on mitigating their cold symptoms. But if you are an athlete, which I think you are, that's why you're listening to this podcast, then this is definitely something you should do. This is going to help you even more. Fans, I'm pausing the conversation again to check in on you. Are you concerned that you have REDS? That's relative energy deficiency in sport. It's a syndrome of not ideal health consequences and performance consequences that all stem from the idea that you're not fueling optimally or fueling enough for your sport needs. I've become an expert in this over the years because unfortunately, a lot of female athletes struggle with this. We have research that shows sometimes up to 90% of female athletes might be suffering from at least one of the side effects of REDS. Other research says that up to 45% of female athletes are struggling with disordered eating. These are big statistical numbers, and I don't like it. I'm here to help you become fierce, fit, and fueled. So first and foremost, head to lindseycortes.com/REDS to learn more about REDS, listen to past podcast episodes, and take our free REDS quiz to see if this might be a concern for you. From there, I've got 3 ways to help you. 1, download the REDS Recovery Guide and start taking action right away. 2, join our REDS Recovery membership. For a very affordable $15 a month, you will have access to me as a sports dietitian to educate and empower you to fuel better. We meet once a week for live calls, Q&A. You have access to the recordings if you can't join live, and a community group chat to support, encourage, and motivate you along the way to fuel fiercely. Last, spots are limited for one-on-one help, but I can help you personally through one-on-one coaching, be it my Fast Track program, the Female Athlete System of Transformation, or perhaps Fuel School, depending on your age. All of that is on my website, lindseycortes.com. But because one-on-one spots are limited, I really want to encourage you to join the REDS Recovery membership. We live in a world where it's very easy to just pop online, read an article, listen to a podcast, and I think we do a decent job at getting information out there, but we all need someone to talk to and really ask those personal questions, and also be open and honest in a community that's going to support you in your fueling needs and goals. And that's exactly what this membership is. So only $15 a month. We meet once a week, and you will be provided with so much education and empowerment and support. I know you won't regret joining. Head to lindseycortes.com/REDS, and there you will see the REDS Recovery membership that you can join, and join us this week. It's time for you to be fierce, fit, and fueled. Okay, so how much do you need? Anywhere between an extra 200 milligrams up to 1,000 milligrams a day. So the RDA for vitamin C is just 75 to 90 milligrams a day. And so we're looking for obviously more than that, 200 up to 1,000 milligrams a day. I do want to caution you with taking as high of 1,000 milligrams a day every single day, preventatively, because there can be side effects to that. One thing is that vitamin C is a natural antioxidant, but there's a certain level of oxidation that you do want to happen in your body, especially in regards to training and adaptation. So there's been some research to show that you don't want super high levels of antioxidants all the time. It might interfere with some of your training adaptations. And so what I kind of think, if you want to, as an athlete, be proactive throughout the winter, throughout cold season, flu season, I would go ahead and aim for an extra 500 milligrams a day of vitamin C. And then if somebody in your household or your roommate is sick, somebody very close to you that you're afraid, oh man, I'm probably going to catch this from them, then maybe bump up to 1,000 milligrams for a few days or a week. I wouldn't stay at the 1,000 milligrams for too long. So 200 to 500 milligrams on a daily basis throughout the cold flu season, and 1,000 milligrams if somebody very close to you is sick and you're trying to, prevent that. You're probably, you're still, again, vitamin C does not prevent you from getting the cold, but as you do contract it, you've bumped up your vitamin C intake a little bit more before that, so that might help mitigate your symptoms. I already mentioned there are some supplemental products out there that will have those doses of 500 to 1,000 milligrams. I actually, when I was sick last week, so my husband was sick first, and so I actually did go out and get some Emergen-C, and I had it a few days before I started feeling sick. So I actually felt better within a week. So maybe that did help. Anyways, you can just mix it in with water, but you know what was delicious? I did a vanilla Greek yogurt with frozen mango, oat milk, and I mixed the emergency packet right into my smoothie. So I had the orange flavor from the emergency and the mango mixed into a smoothie. Because when you're sick and you have like phlegm, sometimes you don't feel like eating, your appetite's off. So the smoothie was good for my appetite, something easier to eat. I liked that it was cold, since I had some inflammation going on in my sinuses. And I really like that flavor. I also, before, have added emergency to fresh squeezed orange juice, and just the flavor of it is really good. So if there's anything about supplement flavor that you don't like, mix it into a smoothie, mix it into orange juice. It was really quite good. I do want to remind you of foods with vitamin C. So an 8-ounce glass of orange juice has, depends on the brand, I suppose, or, fresh squeezed and all that, but approximately 100 milligrams in an 8-ounce glass. And so again, I'm saying take 200 up to 1,000 milligrams extra a day. Hopefully you're getting vitamin C through other foods, through kale, through broccoli, through mango. But if you, throughout the winter cold season, say, I'm going to have 8 ounces of orange juice every single day, or maybe 16 ounces, you're getting an extra 100 to 200 milligrams right there. I know some of you might be thinking in your head, oh, juice, extra sugar, drinking sugar, calories, maybe I don't need that. First of all, you're an athlete. You need the calories and the carbohydrate, so you need it. Second, I like to think of this as a supplement. Think about functional foods. Maybe you take a multivitamin, maybe you take a joint health supplement like I do with Previnex. I take my Previnex joint health supplement every morning with like a 6-ounce glass of orange juice. I just don't think it's quite 8 ounces. I haven't measured it. But take your supplements with your orange juice. Enhance absorption. If you're on an iron supplement, take it with orange juice. You're enhancing your iron absorption, and now you're boosting your vitamin C. Think about orange juice as a supplement in and of itself. So that would be my tip throughout the whole winter seasons. Have a glass of orange juice every single day. Okay, just for reference, I'm talking about orange juice, but grapefruit juice is really high as well because, again, oranges, grapefruit, your citrus fruits have vitamin C. Also like mango, pineapple, a lot of fruit has vitamin C. Red bell pepper has vitamin C. Tomatoes have a little bit, and so therefore like tomato juice, if you're like drinking V8, tomato juice has some good vitamin C in there. And like marinara sauce, tomato sauce in general has a little bit of vitamin C as well. And our dark green veggies, your kale, spinach, broccoli. So that could be another habit you do throughout the winter, to where can you sneak in spinach and kale? Can you throw it in a smoothie? Can you add kale to a soup that you're making? Thinking about adding those foods into your diet, and then go for an 8 to 16 ounce glass of V8 or orange juice or grapefruit juice to supplement your diet with vitamin C. And if people around you are sick, maybe we actually go towards an actual pill, capsule, or powder for additional vitamin C. Okay, I'm going to move on to vitamin D. I feel like I talked a little too long about vitamin C. Okay, I am going to read straight from examine.com about vitamin D and the immune system as well. There are vitamin D receptors on most immune cells, and consequently, vitamin D has the ability to modulate both the innate and adaptive branches of the immune response. Vitamin D is also involved in the production of antimicrobial peptides and downregulates the production of pro-inflammatory cytokines while upregulating the production of anti-inflammatory cytokines. In addition, evidence from a multitude of studies suggests an increased risk of acute respiratory infections and allergies like asthma, eczema, food allergies with lower vitamin D levels. For all these reasons, there's major interest in the use of supplemental vitamin D to improve allergy-related and immune-related outcomes. So again, our acute respiratory infections, cold, bronchitis, laryngitis, pneumonia, rhinitis, things like that. So what that is telling us, this information here, is that your vitamin D levels in your body and taking supplemental vitamin D might be helpful in the prevention of contracting these respiratory infections, but there is limited evidence to support the treatment of it. So again, this is something we want to make sure throughout cold, flu, winter season, that our vitamin D levels are good to try and help kind of prevent getting these things. Most effective supplemental dose is between 400 milligrams up to 1,000 milligrams a day. This is pretty standard. So the RDA for vitamin D is for adults 600 milligrams. And so then if you can add on an extra 400 milligrams to 1,000 milligrams a day, that might be helpful. When I say it's pretty standard, vitamin D is one of those supplements that we're not seeing side effects of supplementation, where I mentioned with vitamin C, you don't want to over supplement for too long. Well, with vitamin D, we're not really seeing that. Once in my career as a dietitian, did I see somebody with blood levels that were approaching an upper limit, and he was way overdosing. He was being stupid with his supplementation. But if you take 1,000 milligrams a day, even 2,000, even 5,000, not milligrams, international units. I don't know what I said before. 400 to 1,000 international units a day. It's a different form. It's not measured in milligrams. And then the RDA is 600 to 800 international units a day. And if you can supplement with an extra 400 to 1,000 international units a day, that could be helpful in this scenario. And many people are already supplementing with 1,000, 2,000, or 5,000 international units a day. So this amount is totally reasonable, shouldn't have any side effects. You can take a pure vitamin D supplement. Vitamin D is a fat-soluble vitamin, and so it's going to be better absorbed in your body along with fat. And so there's some fish oil supplements that have vitamin D in there as well. So maybe you look to take a fish oil with vitamin D. Vitamin D in our food supply is challenging. It's in fish, it's in tuna, it's in salmon, it's in some other fish, but really, unless you're eating salmon every day, it's kind of hard to get through your diet. It is fortified in all of our milk here in the United States and Europe, I believe. So milk is a good source, cow's milk, and it's usually fortified within your non-dairy milks as well, but you need to double check the labels because that's not a requirement like it is with cow's milk. Some in your egg yolks, but it's rather, I don't want to I want you to try. I want you to try and eat fish once or twice a week, drink your whole cow's milk, eat your egg yolks, but I'm just also validating that the sun is a major source. So in the wintertime, supplementation through a pill form is reasonable to try and boost up to an extra 1,000 international units a day. All right, the next nutrient from examine.com that showed the most research to help with these infectious diseases is zinc. Zinc is an essential nutrient for the proper functioning of the immune system, and severe zinc deficiency increases the risk for infection. Zinc lozenges can also limit virus replication in the nasal epithelium by preventing their binding to cells. Zinc may also inhibit vital functions of viruses. The most common approach for using zinc to prevent and treat colds is to take high-dose lozenges, and this approach may be particularly useful for maximizing its antiviral protection. So again, we don't want to be deficient in zinc. So once again, make sure you have enough calories and a varied diet all year long so that you're not deficient. And then for a cold, the most effective thing is when you notice this cold has come on, is bumping up your zinc intake. And the research recommends through lozenges, and you'll see this, so a lozenge, like a cough drop, essentially. You'll see this when you go to your pharmacy or grocery store and you look at the lozenges. Many of them have zinc. Some of them don't, but many of them do. So if you have the cold, if you are sick, if you are looking for a cough drop to soothe your throat, go ahead and get the one with added zinc in it. So the normal RDA for zinc is like 8 to 11 milligrams. I think that's the difference between male and female. But when we're talking about zinc's benefits to help with the common cold, we're talking about an extra 75 to 100 milligrams of zinc. And that's a really high dose. So you don't want to be taking high doses of zinc for too long, because one of the things that interferes with is copper, and high intake of zinc can create a copper deficiency. We don't want that. You don't want any deficiency. So don't do these super high doses for too long. But in those lozenges, the recommendation actually from Examine as well is to take a lozenge with zinc, every 2 to 3 hours. Ideally start within the first 24 hours of experiencing your first symptoms of a cold and stop after 2 weeks. Do not do this for longer than 2 weeks. There can be other side effects as well, like GI irritation. And it's the same thing with vitamin C as well. GI irritation can be a big concern. Let's also talk about food sources of zinc. Zinc is in a lot of your protein foods. So red meat, game, lamb, chicken, poultry. It's in shellfish. And then if you don't eat meat, though I think you should because it's got so many great nutrients in it. But if you don't eat meat, it's going to still be in your high protein foods like nuts, legumes, seeds. So you're going to want, and then dairy eggs, that's a good source of zinc as well. So your meat, your dairy, and then your high protein nuts and legumes as well, and beans. So to summarize, I really want you throughout these winter months to make sure you're getting enough calories, a varied diet, enough protein, and getting in food sources of vitamin C, zinc, vitamin D. Perhaps you want to do a daily supplementation of vitamin D and a daily supplementation of vitamin C, but focus on those whole foods. Do an 8-ounce glass of orange juice or 16-ounce glass of orange juice minimum. And then maybe you consider bumping up an extra 500 milligrams a day if you know you have REDS, if you're a college student, you have a lot of exposure, and you might bump up to 1,000 milligrams a day if people close in your life are sick as well, and you're thinking, I'm probably going to get this soon too. And zinc, we're looking for those bumping up with zinc if you know that you have the cold. Within the first 24 hours, bump up your zinc intake, and only maximum of 2 weeks there. Now, there are other nutrients and herbs that might help as well. So the two I thought of for my sister was honey and garlic. They've been shown to be antimicrobial. They've been shown to be antimicrobial to increase the proliferation of your immune cells, so to literally boost your immune system. According to examine.com, though, that the research is limited, but there's, it's something to consider. And so when we're considering this, I really feel let's focus on the whole food approach. Let's have a tablespoon of honey every single day. That's easy and delicious. You can mix a tablespoon of honey into a glass of tea. You can drizzle it on your toast. We can have garlic. And by the way, with garlic, it is usually the raw garlic that's most helpful. So I love cooking with garlic, but the raw garlic sometimes gets a little trickier. One of my favorite ways to have raw garlic is to make a quick batch of homemade hummus, although I suppose it would be in store-bought hummus as well. But for me, it's in a food processor, do a can of chickpeas, do some olive oil, do some tahini, which is ground up sesame seeds, and add a clove or two of garlic and lemon juice, blend it all together, and you've got some raw garlic mixed into your homemade hummus. You could also do this with not chickpeas, but other beans, so a different bean dip like white beans, navy beans. Another way that I like to get raw garlic in is through a quick homemade salad dressing. Again, theoretically, this should be in a store-bought salad dressing that has garlic as well, but they might be using garlic powder. But you can chop up a garlic clove, add some olive oil, vinegar, salt, pepper, any other spices you want, and you've got your own, Italian seasoning. You've got your own homemade salad dressing, but you've added raw garlic. Throw that on your veggies, throw it on a salad, dip a sandwich in it. Put raw garlic right on a sandwich. Do raw garlic and mayonnaise, make a little aioli, put it on some bread. Sounds amazing. I've never done this, but I've heard of people mixing the two and making garlic honey. So I think they kind of ferment it in a jar. I've never done this, but if you Google garlic honey, you'll come up with some recipes for that. And it does sound really good. I'm thinking about fresh sourdough toast with garlic honey on it. That sounds really good to me. Or a pizza, not a marinara based pizza, but maybe you make a pizza dough and you do a garlic honey base and then arugula and prosciutto. Oh my gosh, that sounds delicious. So there's ways that you can incorporate raw garlic and honey I'm going to go back to the vitamin C and orange juice thing where I'm thinking about a daily habit throughout the winter season of like take a glass of orange juice every single day throughout the winter season. Like just take a spoonful of honey every single day. You can add it to your pre-workout routine. You could just make it part of your morning routine. Start your day with a little honey. Again, like this is something where maybe the general population is thinking honey is straight sugar. And I'm like, great, that's fuel for you as an athlete. That's fuel. Tablespoon of honey, 15 grams of carbs. Guess what? Pre-workout, you should be getting more like 30 to 60 grams of carbs. So have the honey. Have the honey and the orange juice and a slice of toast. And that's your pre-workout. Amazing. Tablespoon of honey, slice of toast, 8 ounces of orange juice. That is your immune boosting and pre-workout. Amazing. Oh, I had mentioned to my sister vitamin E as well. When I went on examine.com, the research was a little more limited here, but definitely vitamin E plays a huge role in your immune system. So vitamin E is found in a lot of our fat foods. It's a fat-soluble vitamin, and so it's in like olive oil and it's in a lot of nuts. So sunflower seeds, almonds, hazelnuts. So selenium did not necessarily show up on examine.com to play a specific role with the common cold or the flu or these infectious diseases, but selenium also plays a huge role in your immune system. And selenium can be found in a lot of nuts. They're in oysters, shellfish, and amazingly, an insane amount of high selenium is found in Brazil nuts to the point where you only need to eat 1 Brazil nut a day and you're like way over your selenium intake. So it's actually been cautioned. People have been cautioned, like do not overeat Brazil nuts because they can actually have too much selenium in there. But I'm thinking again, what are some habits that can take us through the winter season? And it could be something like, hey, I'm going to have nuts as an afternoon snack, or I'm going to add, a 1/4 cup of nuts to my oatmeal bowl every morning. And it's going to have almonds and peanuts and cashews and 1 Brazil nut. Like buy a canister of mixed nuts and make that be your afternoon snack or part of your afternoon snack with 1 Brazil nut, and you're getting vitamin E and you're getting selenium. So, maybe you have nuts as a snack all the time, or maybe you've gotten sick of them. Think about it seasonally. Like this could be a great afternoon snack or a great thing to add to my warm oatmeal bowls, because maybe you don't like oatmeal in the summer. I don't, it's too hot. But in the winter, sometimes I am like, ooh, oatmeal sounds good. Let's make that habit of adding the nuts to there so we get some vitamin E, we get some selenium. Something that I did not think about that did pop up on examine.com of having some good research, decent research, I should say, just decent, not good. Decent research to show benefits with reducing some of these infectious diseases, the cold, the flu, the respiratory infections, was Echinacea. And I have to admit, I have never been good at like understanding herbs and their role with nutrition because it's not something I was ever taught. This was not part of my like degree to become a dietitian or get a degree in nutrition. And so I think there's a lot of powerful herbs that are, we think of ancient medicine used to be herbs and plants, and then now we have modern medicine, which is different, but there's still a lot of power in these things. And I've gotten into that recently. I don't think I've done a podcast episode about adaptogens yet, but there's a lot of adaptogens. These are herbs, these are plants, these are botanicals that play a role in our health. And Echinacea is one of them. It's a flower, it's a plant. So I really didn't learn about this, but on examine.com, we're seeing that this actually help with your immune system. So on examine.com, it cites a meta-analysis of double-blind randomized trials on Echinacea for upper respiratory tract infections found a reduction in the rate of infection based on 8 studies, all of which were largely in agreement. There's some evidence for a reduction in duration, but that wasn't actually significant. So you can take Echinacea in a supplement form, and examine.com says that doses of up to 800 milligrams 2 times a day has been studied and safely used for up to 6 months in adults. There is a rare but severe side effect of an allergic reaction with Echinacea. So I guess be mindful of your symptoms. Rare, but yeah, you could take it in pill form I personally, again, I try to think about these things like, how can we get this through food? And when we think of herbs, I think of tea. And there are plenty of teas out there, herbal teas that have echinacea in them, and many of them are marketed as immune support or throat coat. So there's the Yogi brand tea that's called immune support. I have that one in my house right now. There's the traditional medicinals, throat coat that has echinacea in it. There's Bigelow Stay Well, that's lemon echinacea herbal tea. So again, thinking about habits. Could we have a cup of herbal echinacea tea once a day, midday, end of day, evening, just to kind of a healthy habit to do that throughout the winter months? Maybe we don't need to do this in the summer. Maybe we just do it in the winter. So I hope this was educational. I hope this gave you some actionable tips. And again, the biggest thing we can do is not be around other sick people and wash our hands and be cautious of what surfaces we touch and how we're spreading germs. But there are some things we can do to help protect our bodies. Maybe we're still going to catch the sickness, but if we can mitigate the symptoms, reduce the severity, or reduce or shorten the duration, that is hugely helpful. Your nutrition all year round matters. Once you're sick, you got to act fast. Like maybe the zinc lozenges within the first 24 hours will help. But it's really about how strong and prepared your body is going into the season where you might be more at risk. And again, athletes, although you think of yourselves as being strong and capable and fit and healthy, if you are underfueling, if you are overtraining, you're actually not. Let that sink in. Just being forward and blunt here. You're actually not fit and healthy just because you're an athlete. If you're underfueling, if you're overtraining, you're putting your body at risk. And we see that in REDS research that people with REDS have more sick days, more upper respiratory tract infections. I really want to focus on the whole foods. So build these healthy habits with these foods that I talked about in this episode into the next few months. I know that I myself was kind of with getting sick last week, and my sister asked me the question, doing all this research, I've got a few things I'm going to implement as well. And I hope that you can all stay healthy this season. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much for listening, and I really hope you enjoyed that episode. Please help spread the message of empowering female athletes to be fierce, fit, and fueled by giving this podcast a 5-star review and leaving a comment. You can also help more female athletes by sending this episode to a friend. Head to lindseycortes.com for more resources, information, more episodes, ways to work together, downloadable guides, and ebooks. And if you're interested in becoming a guest on the show or have a guest suggestion, head to lindseycortes.com/podcast, and there's a form for you to fill out to get on the show. Hey, there's more resources on my YouTube channel, Female Athlete Nutrition, Instagram at female.athlete.nutrition, and private Facebook group, Female Athlete Nutrition. I think you get the point. I'm here to support female athletes by fueling better and becoming fierce, fit, and fueled. Most importantly, if you need help, reach out. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you in the next show.